I have been cautious about Digimon Beatbreak. While a brand new Digimon anime is always exciting, especially with the drought we had for a while there, and while the visuals look very exciting and a lot of the new Digimon designs are very intriguing to me, I personally have not enjoyed a lot of the anime output of Digimon for a while now. I had big problems with Digimon Adventure Tri. I enjoyed Kizuna, but it left me with more questions than answers. Same with Digimon Adventure 02, the beginning. And then as far as seasons go, while Digimon Adventure 2020 had an amazing soundtrack and great visuals, I found its length far too, long for a story that to me ultimately did not even come close to matching the material that it was acting as member berries for. Then moving into Ghost Game, which to me had a weaker soundtrack but still some bangers, really great Digimon designs, and everything else to me fell by the wayside with a very long runtime for what was ostensibly a Monster of the Week show with very little interest in an overarching narrative that I'm personally a fan of. But of course, your mileage may vary, and things I don't like might be things you love, and that's fine. So when it came to getting excited about Digimon Beatbreak, honestly, I struggled, and my views on this channel also reflected that. I was putting out Digimon Beatbreak content trying to be excited, and really I found that people were very interested in Time Stranger and kind of interested in Beatbreak, maybe interested in the new Digimon, but that's about it. However, I sat down to watch the first episode with my wife on Sunday morning, and then had so much fun with it that I put it on my CRT and watched a bit of it again, really giving me those Saturday morning cartoon vibes. And then I started to notice patterns and things in the story which made me cautiously optimistic. So on today's video, I'm going to be talking about some of the things we learned and things that happened in the first episode of Digimon Beatbreak, but also leading into a very early doors theory. Is it truly a Karn EX video? We don't have an episode 1 theory, sometimes a theory before a game even has a title, and exploring whether there might be something really interesting to like about Digimon Beatbreak. What is up, digital companions? My name is Karn EX and welcome back to another video. And yes, it's just an incredible time to be a Digimon fan right now. Even if I didn't like Beatbreak at all, new Digimon video game, new anime, upcoming Digimon mobile game, the TCG thriving, fan Beamon in everything. Like, I can't believe how much fan Beamon we got recently. Time Stranger, Beatbreak, Royal Base in the TCG. Someone else at Bandai Creative must love that B as much as me. It is my favorite Digimon after all. Also, it didn't strike me until @Lieutenant Nemu atted me and said, @Karn EX, bro, did they put you in episode 1? I was like, well, I don't steal watches, I'm not a watch thief. And then I saw that the subtitle said, it's time you novices find out what happens when you pick a fight. The watch thief who talks about time and has a fan beam on, time after time. That wasn't for me, but holy moly, the coincidence. When they dub this, I demand to voice him, or at least politely ask. But yes, we also got Digimon Beatbreak episode 1 this week, and I really am unsure how I'm going to cover Beatbreak. I'm definitely not going to be doing weekly coverage of Beatbreak, but I am going to talk about like hype moments and aura, I guess. Evolution episodes and things like that. Also, while I've got you, things are starting to accelerate, see what I did there, towards 100,000 subscribers here. We are past 91,000. It is tantalizingly close to that plaque. If you're a big fan of Digimon, whether it be the video games with Time Stranger, the anime with Beatbreak, mobile games with Elysian, and much, much more, it would mean the world if you would subscribe. If we can get to that 100,000 this year, it would mean the world to me and prove to the world that Digimon is more back than ever. Thank you. And what really surprised me was how quickly Beatbreak got into the action. I think because of the marketing, you can see that this is definitely, while familiar to Digimon, also doing brand new things. For example, the Sapo Tama, which is at the core of the entire show, the support Tamagotchi, or the support Digitama, is a fundamental difference. We do not have a regular Digivice in this season, instead a kind of Digivice, Digi-Egg, Power Source hybrid, and a world that is pretty unfamiliar to Digimon anime specifically. But we do have a lot of near future stories in Digimon video games. Typically, we're looking at shows that have more contemporary kids. Adventure, 02, Tamers, Frontier, etc., dealing with a fantastical world, after being in a modern day setting that is familiar to us. Instead, Digimon Beatbreak immediately takes place in the world of 2050 envisioned by the creative team, meaning that there's not really as familiar of a home base as we've had in a lot of previous seasons. That's not necessarily a bad thing, however, it is going to be a very different flavour for this season in comparison to some that you might be more familiar with. The show opened in honestly a bombastic way, which I think addresses some of the concerns about this not being a typical Digimon season, with this kind of internet-y looking space reminding me of the internet from our war game, or indeed Kowloon from Cyber Sleuth, where we get full-on Digimon battles. Pristimon digivolving to Wolvermon, which we've seen in pre-release material, and even Karopmon getting involved in a fight with a watch thief who has a fan Beamon partner. Love that. It even digivolves to Waspmon. What I think is really interesting though is how the Sapotama work with these Digimon, as they have to consume the Sapotama to power up and digivolve, but when Murasamemon eventually steps in and defeats the Waspmon, it doesn't just die or turn to data like we've seen in prior seasons, but instead almost like spits puts out the Sapotama and digivolves back down to Pupumon. It's an interesting way to start the show, I think, and sets up this idea of this cleaner group and maybe a little bit of sinister vibes going on. In pre-release material, a lot of people thought that Murasamemon and his tamer Kyo looked like they might be the Leomon of the season. However, the way that Kyo is so fine with imprisoning this guy seemingly who stole some watches does hint at a sinister streak, which is reflected in some visuals we have of the guy. The episode and the show follows Tomoro Tenma, a kid who seemingly has something special about him. And while I'm not going to do a full episode breakdown, I encourage you to go check out my friend Corey over at the DigiKnow for more of an in-depth look at the episode overall. Some things I really did like is that Tomoro does seem to have something a little bit special about him. He even has that like spot which one is the protagonist of the anime or the stand user could be anyone vibe. But what really immediately struck at home for me was first of all that he interacted with people out in the civilian world. This girl whose Sapotama goes dark and she can't use it and then gets charged up and starts acting weird because of Tomoro. His name also is Tomoro Tenma and this is the 10th overall season of Digimon anime, so he's going towards tomorrow as the 10th anime season. Maybe we'll end up getting a crossover episode with other protagonists from the history of Digimon at some point. But the thing I really liked was his home life and him as a person. We see Tomoro in this world of sci-fi with Sapotama everywhere, people's lives governed by honestly what feels like a social credit system. If your heartbeat and your rhythm and your maybe optimism isn't good enough to charge up your Sapotama, you can't get into school or work or get the food you want. Really quite jarring dystopian stuff, and while the first episode doesn't address this super heavily, you can in the background and side stuff start to notice it more. For example, Tomoro wears wired headphones and is a drummer. These are both very analog and acoustic style things. Rather than having wireless earbuds or earphones, he has wired music. Almost a rejection of that modern Bluetooth Wi-Fi state that the world is in. And indeed we've had things, and my friend Corey talked about this in his video too, where security experts have said that wearing wireless earbuds can actually be bad because they could potentially be tapped into. You can't be monitored, you can't be traced if you're wearing good old-fashioned wired earphones. And the same with his drumming. Obviously he's a big drumming fan because of his brother and wants to be as good of a drummer as his brother, and the whole drumming thing ties into the beat double meaning of the season, a heartbeat and the beat of your drum, the beat of your soul, music. But again, this paints this picture as this almost Luddite character, which I think is really interesting. Some of this is a little bit undermined, I think, when we get home to his home life, and Tomoro does have a Sapotama, but my wife pointed out to me that maybe this isn't Tomoro's own Sapotama, but rather one that him and his brother share, kind of like how you might have an Amazon Echo in your house, but not really personally own the Echo, it's just something your family picked up along the way. However, we do get this intimation once Asuka, Tomoro's brother, discovers what happened with that girl's Sapotama, that there is something very different about Tomoro. Eventually, through shenanigans, the Sapotama in the house hatches into Gekkomon, who is desperate for Tomoro's E-Pulse, and I think this is super interesting, this E-Pulse idea. And in fact, when what are known as Haimon or Haimon, the hyena Digimon, show up to get Tomoro's E-Pulse, Gekkomon doesn't even really act out of protection for his maybe partner, but instead just he's the only one that deserves that E-Pulse. I'm sure that bond is going to develop over time, but I think it's also interesting that Gekkomon already knows Tomoro's name. Jumping ahead a little bit, and this is entering into spoiler territory now, yes, we do have combat or at least an interaction with the Hyenamon, and this thing that was picked up on earlier of that girl that Tomoro interacted with having something called Cold Heart, which seemed to be kicking off way before she met Tomoro, as she couldn't use her Sapotama. And my opinion is that it is going to be a thing where your emotions are deadened, or maybe you're just not as full of life as the Sapotama needs, and we'll get into the Sapotama and the people surrounding it a little bit later in the video. Anyway, moving forward, tragedy strikes as we have another example, I believe, of Cold Heart, as Asuka, Tomoro's brother, who seems to know about Tomoro being special in some way, and indeed has knowledge of Digimon, saying that humans cannot fight them off. Marcus Damon would probably give everyone a run for their money in this world, is bitten, held onto, and the E-Pulse drained by this Haimon, with his whole body and even eyes frosting over, and then we get this tragic shot where the camera is placed where Tomoro's eyes are, meaning we can see his glasses, and tears fall onto his glasses. That was an absolute standout moment to me and started to really convince me this anime could be something special. And then his brother falls into the water. Now, we didn't see a body, we don't get a funeral, so I do suspect that perhaps his brother is not dead, and indeed this whole Cold Heart syndrome thing, which this weird Sapotama company is taking care of, might be something like Eden syndrome from Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, where people aren't dead, they're just trapped somehow or locked away inside their own body. Good rule of thumb for a lot of shows is if you don't see a dead body, someone could always return. And I think we still need a lot of information on why Tomoro's brother knew so much about Digimon. Maybe Asuka and Kyo being friends friends and there being some kind of betrayal element to this character that Tomoro is mourning when it's revealed he's both not dead and maybe did something bad in the past is incredible. But obviously a lot of emotion is there because it also seems that the parents of Tomoro and Asuka are dead too. So, the Sapotama. This concept of a sort of government / corporate over-managing, which takes care of people when they've got cold heart, which seems to dispatch of Digimon. What's going on here? Well, immediately I got vibes of Final Fantasy VII. And I know that's very Persona fans seeing their first JRPG, getting a lot of Persona vibes, but this idea of the planet, basically, the Sapotama and everything associated with it being run on human energy, the life force of the planet, felt very much like Marco. And in the intro, we get this look at a shadowy group of people, including an old man in a giant egg chair, who very likely could be the CEO of the Sapotama company. Also likely in this big egg-shaped part of the city called Shangri-La Egg, and we will get to that name at the end of the video, where it's implied you need to have a lot of money to live in it, where the posh upper class people live. And when we look at the world of Digimon Beatbreak besides that, there is a lot of devastation. Ruined buildings, destroyed bridges, flooded areas. This is clearly a world that is descending into kind of a slum. While there is still a lot of technical advancement, Shangri-La Egg and the rest of the city really started to remind me of Midgar in Final Fantasy VII, with the posh, well-off upper Shinra on the plate and everything below going to ruin. My last little bit of criticism really is that I don't love the look of, as I said, that kind of space we've seen that might be the digital world, although I don't think it is. I think it's more like a corridor. Something like Kowloon, as I said, in Cyber Sleuth, or even the internet in our war game. Something in between the digital world and the human world. And I hope we do explore the digital world more. Also reminding me of that kind of in-between space that Digimon cross over from in Digimon Tamers. The overall look of this is a very interesting look, but I think something I'm a little bit over familiar with now because of those previously stated media. And honestly, because of the overly aggressive like purple coloration, I did find some of the scenes a little bit hard to keep track of. So I hope that's not what the entire digital world looks like in this series, and again is more of a corridor. But what might the digital world look like in Beatbreak? Well, strap in for a very early doors Karn EX theory that's going to get proven wrong. In the intro of Digimon Beatbreak, we do get a look at what seems to be at least an antagonistic, if not straight up evil group of humans, which I think is huge. Love that idea. I said for a long time that I'd really like to see a season focus back on human interaction, human antagonists that use Digimon, rather than there being a big Digimon evil presence. Even Digimon Tamers, I think, succeeded by having Digimon, humans, and then ultimately something in the middle between Digimon and humans as the final villain. But as Oxalis Sinensis on Reddit points out, the color palette of the new villain group appearing in the Beatbreak opening seems to match the Chinese 5 elements, with yellow corresponding to metal, since metal element literally means gold in Chinese, green being wood, blue being water, red being fire, and this orangey color being earth. And as they go on to say, in addition, each of them carries a dual-colored crystal. The outer layer matches their individual color, while the inner layer features one of white, blue, black, red, or yellow, which are the traditional representative colors of the Chinese 5 elements. And as other people pointed out in the thread, this could also link very directly to the Digimon sovereigns. Gold for Fang Longmon, green for Ibonwumon, blue for Azulongmon, red for Zuchaomon, and maybe orange for Baihumon. And this is where things start to get really, really interesting, because, of course, the sovereigns, while having Japanese connection, also tie back to China, kind of straddling that line between Chinese and Japanese mythology. And a kind of evil or antagonistic version of the sovereigns in Chinese mythology are the Great Perils, which are starting to get representation in Digimon New Century, the Chinese exclusive mobile game. The Shikyoju, or the 4 Perilous Beasts. Currently we only have 2 members, Dijiangmon and Yihumon, based on Dijiang or Hundun and Chongqi. But in Digimon lore, these Shikyoju, as well as being of course tied to Digimon New Century, are specifically tied to the Eastern digital world, also known as Shambala. Now, this may seem initially a kind of crackpot, silly tinfoil hat theory. Colors of gems relating to sovereigns, relating to perils, relating to Shambala. I don't think it's a coincidence. And to add a little bit to this, at Eirias Eidolon said the 2 likely antagonists are wearing Samfu and Changshan, traditional Chinese clothing with Chinese frog closures and Mandarin collar. Pretty compelling. You can actually ignore this color theory about these villains and still get a ton of Shambala Shambala vibes out of Digimon Beatbreak. We recently discovered Shambala, the digital world of China and Japan, split between the Genshi continent and Ashino Island, China and Japan, with a bunch of Digimon, old and new, now being taken into Shambala lore, including Susanoo-mon being the one that acted on behalf of the host computer Kunlun. And, very brief spoiler, and really doesn't matter for Digimon Story Time Stranger, but you can skip a couple of seconds if you don't want to hear it. Where have we seen Kunlun recently? Digimon Story Time Stranger, which is the story of the Iliad server, but Yggdrasil or King Drasil and Kunlun both get involved. So we've gone from Shambala just being debuting in these upcoming Digimon Pendulum Color V-Pets to now being in Digimon Story Time Stranger, which has been in development for a long time, and the connections get more strong from here. Because two very interesting things have also been observed about Digimon Beatbreak. First of all, as I talked about earlier, the Shangri-La egg is at the center of this city. The whole Sapotama thing seems to tie into the Shangri-La egg, which is probably where these characters, these evil-looking characters, and that CEO sat in the egg chair reside. And what is Shangri-La? Well, if we go over to our old friend Wikipedia, Shangri-La is a fictional place in Tibet's Kunlun Mountains. Shangri-La is literally in Kunlun. Kunlun, the host server, may be connected to Shangri-La. And to drive it even further, while Shangri-La is in the Kunlun Mountains, the real place of Shambala, the spiritual kingdom of Tibetan Buddhism, may well have been what inspired the fictional Shangri-La, meaning that the terms Shangri-La and Shambala and Kunlun are inherently linked. Alright, pretty good. What else have you got, Karn? You're probably asking. Well, the upcoming Pendulum Colors also have what seems to be the evolution line for the new Renamon evolutions from Digimon Elysian, meaning that the new Pendulums already have connection to non-V-Pet media. If only we could connect a new Digimon from Beatbreak to Shambala. Oh wait, we can connect 3. First of all, this week while I was editing, Murasamemon got added to the Digimon reference book. This is the partner of Kyo in Beatbreak, and the very first line of Murasamemon's Digimon Encyclopedia listing states there is a style of swordsmanship that has been passed down since ancient times in the Eastern Digital World. Do you know what the Eastern Digital World is? That's right, Shambala. But in addition to that, the new protagonist partner, Tomoro's partner, has a very familiar name, doesn't he? Yes, we already have a Digimon called Geckomon with 1 K. However, this new partner is, to be totally correct, Geckomon with 2 Ks. Why would they specifically choose that name when they could go with a lot of other names for him? Well, a lot of people have already noticed, and you might have too, that Geckomon is really themed around moonlight. He has a crescent moon on his forehead, which starts to develop from his pre-evolutions. Kekomon has no moon, Kekomon has a slightly bigger crescent moon, then the crescent moon gets much bigger and much more full as Geckomon. While Geckomon as a name refers to the real-world gecko, it's not spelled G-E-C-K-O, is it? No, it's spelled G-E-K-K-O, and the word gecko in Japanese means moonlight. Alright, Karn, you've proven the moon thing. He appears in front of moons, he's got a moon on his head, his name means moon gecko. Why does that matter? Because of Tsukiyomi. Tsukiyomi is a Japanese Shinto god of the moon and the night. Tsukiyomi no Mikoto, the moon kami in Japanese mythology. Literally the god of the moon in Japanese mythology. Now sure, Japanese doesn't inherently mean Shambala, it's a Japanese piece of media after all, but do you know who Tsukiyomi angers, and indeed in some media is referred to as the wife of Tsukiyomi? Amaterasu, who features heavily in the mythology of Tsukiyomi and who is one of the brand new mega level Digimon for the Shambala V-Pets, none other than Amaterasumon. So the Japanese side of the Shambala V-Pet features prominently Amaterasumon, and Geckomon is inherently linked to the moon. It could be that his mega form is Tsukiyomimon. But that's just one connection between Japanese mythology. What about the Chinese side of Shambala, the other whole V-Pet, which has the brand new pre-evolution rookie Kakamon and the mega Seiten Gokumon for Gokumon. Yes, our Sun Wukong Digimon that's existed for a long time, but is getting super hard focus in the Shambala V-Pets, and oh right, Gokumon's getting super hard focus in Beatbreak 2. We have seen Gokumon in pre-release material, being a Digimon that the cleaners are unable to get data on. And when we watch the intro, immediately following all of the humans which appear to connect to either the Sovereign sovereigns or the perils or both, who do we see? What appears to be a shadowed, red-eyed, evil Digimon grasping a Sapotama that looks an awful lot like Gokumon. And that new Gokumon pre-evolution rookie, Kakamon? What's he wearing? Oh, that's right, a pair of headphones so you could listen to the beat of music with. An intrinsic connection between Gokumon, Shambala, and music, a big theme of this season. If this is not the case, the lineups to Shambala are crazy, and the final cherry on the pie for me is that the series coordinator, series planner, I don't know what the word they use for it specifically is, also worked on Digimon Data Squad or Digimon Savers. And what kind of Digimon show was that? Oh, that's right, a show that heavily involved the Royal Knights and Yggdrasil, a host computer. The first Digimon season really to heavily focus on a host computer being part of the plot. And that guy's back at it in the year where we finally have a name for Shambala, that third digital world, and the name of the host computer, Kunlun. I don't think any of this is a coincidence. I think this is all synergistic, and I think Bandai and Toei are nailing it. And all of this may be revealed next episode, but if it isn't, or even if it is, your boy put the theory out first. I believe Digimon Beatbreak is our first season that will be connected and perhaps set in the digital world of Shambala, the Eastern digital world, which we finally got a name of after years of just being referred to as the third digital world. I think, or at least hope, that we're going to see an actual digital world, not this cyberspace we've seen so far, that will be mystical, with the Genshi continent, an Ashino island similar to Digimon Adventure going to File Island. And like I say, with the same guy working on it as worked on Digimon Data Squad, instead of a focus on Yggdrasil, we may instead get a focus on Kunlun and Digimon of Shambhala like Ryugamon, Amaterasumon, Enmamon, and others. This could be really special. Plus, from a marketing perspective, it makes a ton of sense too, because not only are English-speaking Japanese fans, etc., excited by the concept of the new digital world being explored, but also as it does have such intrinsic links to China. China is one of the biggest markets for Digimon. That's why they get so many exclusive mobile games, so it pays off in that element too. So that is it, both my rundown of what I liked about Digimon Beatbreak and my theory about how it all connects to Shambhala and how we might get Tsukiyomimon and much, much more. Thank you to my sovereigns, ZDK14, Chaotic Prophet, and Jeremy Babino, who support me over on patreon.com/Karn EX. I added one more crazy tier to Patreon for those that truly want to go crazy, but you can support the channel at any tier and make sure that cool videos get to happen, and you're going to get exclusive content for yourself. And thank you to my YouTube channel members here on YouTube for clicking that join button down below and supporting the channel too. Hope you're enjoying all the early access recently, and I'll see you next time when we go digital. Bye bye.